Hello and welcome to the closure of the immensely long hiatus we've had on the data archive. Okay, so I guess I gotta do this. I'll explain it in a minute. And I'm here with...
Kia ora, I'm Horsefry.
I'm Lurf.
And I'm Pokey. I'm glad that I'm always on the last of the list, alphabetically. So I'm never surprised about my turn.
People always know what to expect from you.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a jump scare at the start.
So, I completely forgot to do the funny language bit I do at the start. And I was caught off guard last minute, so I just, since I didn't have a language, I just did this stupid corny language that means absolutely nothing that I do with my girlfriend, so that's what that was.
That's cute. That's really cute.
That's cute.
I was gonna do Morse codes because I thought that was stupid and funny, but then I completely forgot.
Do it next time.
Yeah, next time for sure.
Yeah, I'll do it next time.
It's been so long, it's like easy to forget that we have a bit going.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't even know what languages I did. But anyway, so what summary. What have we been doing? No, never mind that. What were we gonna do?
It's been so long.
How are we feeling about being back at the data archive?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been ages, so if we said what we would have been doing, we'd be like, we just record an entire data archive of what we've been doing. Although I do have a Ciconia relevant thought of a thing I've done recently, because I watched Being John Malkovich recently, and it's like, if you haven't seen that but you have seen Get Out, it has a similar kind of like twist or like bit to the story, and it just reminds me a lot of like CPPs and Ciconia and the way they work, and how it's kind of scary to like the idea of like having somebody else in your head who can potentially take over and like put you in like a quiet sunken place where you don't know what's going on, or that you're like fighting to regain control, but like your body's just moving on its own. Yeah, I don't know. Have you guys seen that movie? If you haven't, I'll leave it vague.
I have not. No.
Nah.
I don't watch movies.
Well,
no, I do.
I do.
Like,
I do recommend Being John Malkovich. It's very good. I mean, if you haven't seen Get Out, you definitely should watch that. Like, that was the best movie of like, I think 2017.
Has it been that long?
Something like that. 2019, 2016.
I haven't seen it, but I remember when all the trailers were going in and they went hard, and then I just forgot to watch it. Or maybe I just realized that I don't actually want to watch a horror movie.
It isn't. I'll say it isn't like a horror movie like jump scares. Like there's not really any jump scares in the movie, but it is very creepy. Like it's Higurashi core kind of. That's actually probably a good way of putting it. It's only Kakushi core.
On the topic of Higurashi core in horror movies without jump scares, I don't do scary movies, but I did this one that Mushroom recommended, and honestly, like, Jesus, it's called Shutter Island, and it's just, damn, it is very Higurashi core.
I haven't seen that, but I'll keep an eye out.
I need to watch more movies.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a thing where I've there's still one last DVD rental store like somehow clinging to life in my city, and I've been going there as I have it recently. Because like I have a DVD player, and it costs, I guess, a little bit more than doing Netflix, but like I actually get to choose what I watch, and it's all like a backlog of movies.
Wait, you actually go in and rent movies?
Yeah.
Old style?
Yeah,
What the fuck? You're going retro. That's so sick.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I've seen this push for like retro life, like people buying those old ass cameras and switching from smartphones back to those flip phones. And honestly, I get it. We all gotta detox once in a while.
It's a lot more fun than like going on Netflix and scrolling through all of the slop and trying to decide if the slop looks interesting enough to try to watch, or occasionally being like, man, I haven't seen this movie in ages, and you look it up and it's not there, and you're like, oh, okay, never mind.
This is just like my favorite dystopian visual novel with Tojiro Mitake and his retro camera.
Yeah.
It's like being like, wow, so retro, we have to worry about earthquakes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of, did we want to go into the summary? Did we have more to talk about in terms of what we've been up to?
can I talk about my one family friendly current world event tie-in to Ciconia?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So Canada, of all the things for Ryukishi to predict, how are we at the point in human history where actual factions are forming? Like, we all know that Ryukishi is writing and God is coping, but God cope is wrong this time because Canada is not part of AOU.
Yeah.
Because in case you don't know, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is preliminary voting. I don't know if this is just like a popularity poll or like just some random poll that has actually no consequence. But like there was this one poll of people voting like, should Canada join, what was it, European Union? Which makes no sense.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. It doesn't have any like binding power or anything, but it is funny that like.
But honestly, of all the things to go from Ciconia to real life, like, of all the things,
Don't let it be.
that is so funny. Stay tuned for Glass C.
I mean, I wouldn't expect Canada to actually fully join the EU, but like, I think there are like ways they could progress that if they wanted to, if they thought the public sentiment was worth actioning. I think, to be honest, like I expect it's mainly an attitude of like, well, I definitely don't want to join the United States, so what's the next best option? Oh, shall I jump into the or has anyone else got something?
Well, I guess I'll mention this time we'll be covering the chapters Simultaneous Global Truce and Terror, Disaster Utopia, and The Dignity of Returning to Dust.
Yeah.
Which is a banger title.
That is...
Like, holy shit.
They all are,
Yeah,
kind of.
He popped off.
Except for the first one, really.
I mean, yeah, we'll talk about Comrade Mario, obviously, at some point, but one of my favorite Flow Perfecto shitpost
the wisdom one
videos was that one's good as well, but I love the one with like Mario and he like gets the star and he goes like jumping around and then he like flies and then the
music plays.
Ciconia music plays and he's like, woohoo, time to return the planet to the dignity of death.
Oh, Flow Perfecto, you will be missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, without any further ado, Simultaneous Global Truce and Terror. So we start off with a quote from Piccolo. It says, "Peace must never be bought with compromise. That tells your opponent that you're willing to pay for it." Of course, this is Piccolo Machiavelli, but I like to think that Piccolo Dragon Ball Z also thinks this.
Because I read from the text and it jumps in after the quotes instead of before the quotes, like, who is this actually attributed to? I can't remember.
Machiavelli.
So it just says Machiavelli?
It's Piccolo Machiavelli. Is that his actual name?
Because I've noticed some weird stuff going on with these quotes.
Oh my god, really, please. That was...
Because if it says Piccolo, his real name is Niccolo, isn't it?
Is it? Wait.
Yeah, it is. I cannot believe up to this point I have not noticed. I think all of the people all of the real people are slightly different in their quoted. I'm gonna bring it up when we come to it. But it's not Piccolo, it's Niccolo.
For the Erika moment.
Yeah, it is Niccolo.
I was just about to say it's funny because a piccolo is like a woodwind instrument, I think. Like that was like Akira Toriyama's whole thing was like he'd name characters after like vegetables or like instruments or like when you find out what the characters are named after, it's like it just feels like a silly pun.
Like JoJo's Part 5, and they're all named after food.
Yeah, it makes me think of like...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Makes me think of the very start of Ciconia, where it's like talking about like, oh, like this is fiction and this is no relation to like real persons or whatever, but it starts getting like really specific. Like any references to this specific Bible passage are pure coincidence, and I feel like that's like Riki should be like, see, it's not related to the real person. It's not Niccolo Machiavelli. It's Piccolo.
Yeah.
It's original character. Do not steal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I guess I was right to imagine like a green alien saying this line.
Yes.
That's the intended intended effect.
That's the point at which our timeline branches from Ciconia, is that they had Piccolo and we had Niccolo as their Machiavelli. In this chunk, we get Arthur Hemingway, and as opposed to Ernest Hemingway, I think, and then we have a Hein Donner, but their name is Jack when it's not really Jack.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I had just skimmed over that, but, like...
They don't want to get copyright struck by history, I guess Ryukishi's thinking.
Yeah, he doesn't want to spoil people on the... I think we did this joke already last Data Archive. Yeah, and I don't find... I've just Googled, like, peace must never be bought with compromise Machiavelli, and I don't see it. It's not, like, coming up as, like, a famous quote or anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure these are real quotes.
I think he may just be making things up. As Ryukishi is known to do.
His source is that he made it up.
I mean, that's the plot of every When They Cry, isn't it?
Wait, I found one from Gandhi. Gandhi is correctly written, actually. Could it be a spelling mistake?
They got... No, because they also... Well, I mean, like, Hemingway is... Well, first of all, the first name is different, so it could be referring to a different person, but Hemingway is spelled with one M instead of two. And so it's like every single person being quoted has their name spelled wrong and is a slightly different name.
What if Ryukishi... Yeah. Maybe Ryukishi actually got the rights to Gandhi.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Gandhi gave permission.
I was going through the chapters just now to see if I could find more quotes. And I didn't find a misspelling of a name. You know, like there's like a lot of them where it's just like, oh, it's the Gestress or King of Ridicule. But this one really made me chuckle. Move to E4. First move to E4. No, not the pawn. The queen. Just grab it, hold it at this angle, and go for the eyes. And the person quoted for this is just how to win at chess. Like, not a real person, just how to win at chess.
What if that's their full legal name, actually?
How to win at chess is my favorite Ciconia character.
First name, How.
Mr. How Chess.
How is short for Howard. Howard to win at chess.
Yeah, there's also one that says Introduction to Chess for Good Kids. That's another person that was quoted.
It's funny that before we started, we talked about how I was going to try and keep the summary short so that we
and how we weren't going to interrupt it. Yeah,
I haven't even got past the initial quote.
Let's go summarize it.
Okay, so things are looking up. A truce is called across the world simultaneously, and Mari Carmen and Valentina email the Order of the Public Bath to let them know that they've been working hard to restore peace. So we find out that Leto gave big jobs in the IPMA, which I think is like the Leto military. But they gave them.
Yeah, it's the International Police Mediation Association, and it's Leto's de facto military, is what they're called.
Right, yeah. Okay, so they're kind of gives me the vibe of like they're the UN, but they're the UN that's like directly controlled by one faction. So, like, I guess that kind of makes sense that they can give provisional director roles to, like, just a foreign national. But yes, they give these big jobs to politicians who they think haven't been caught up in the war fever, which the Order of the Public Bath discuss how that's a huge flex of, like, soft power by Leto. They reckon it's going to empower all of these peace-loving leaders all around all the other factions to try and, like, force a peace. Against the will of seemingly the people and the leaders of all the other four factions. But it potentially comes at the cost of making Leto look like their Team America World Police. I think we find out later in the chapter, like, Leto are just, like, fully on board with that image. They want to be seen as, like, Team America World Police, so good for them, I guess. Anyway, one of the peace lovers is Lingji's grandfather. I'm going to say this, I'm going to ruin this pronunciation, but Liu Tiankai. Everyone's worried that he and the others will be shunned by society for resisting the current of popular sentiment driving the world to war. And the comparison's made to Sugihara Chiun, again, probably didn't say that right, who was the Lithuanian ambassador in 1939. And when a bunch of Jews fled Poland from the Nazis and the Soviets, he just, like, handed out like lots of visas that would allow them to transit through Japan, and like there's a cute story on the Wikipedia page that like he was recalled from Lithuania, and on his way out he had like handfuls of like visas and he was writing them out on the train and throwing them out the window to try and help as many people as possible. Absolute Chad. But the comparison is that like apparently even upon returning to Japan, he was like treated coldly, like he was treated as a traitor, and he wasn't like rehabilitated in the Japanese national consciousness until like several years after he died, which is quite sad. But yeah, they reckon potentially the same thing will happen to these people who stuck their necks out. Miao raises the idea of getting in touch with Lingji's grandfather, and just to see how the Order of the Public Bath can help, because like a lot of people are feeling like they have a lot of power, but they don't know where to use it or how to use it. Rethabil, which someone in the last episode said how to say that, and I can't remember, so I'll just keep saying it, Rethabil, but that's not how you say it. But Rethabil brings up...
I got it here.
Oh, yeah.
It's Retabile.
That's it.
Retabile.
Retabile. I'll try and say it properly. This series is a little more challenging in that regard, but I'll do my best. So Retabile's big brother is mentioned as someone who's sympathetic to peace. And this one, I left a note for Stan. Stanisław. Yeah, Stanisław. Yeah. Stanisław says he doesn't know anybody, but he'll try his best to look for people who could help, like point the Order of the Public Bath in the correct direction. And then Miao brings out the absolute greatest ally to peace of all time through all the cosmos, which is his father Tojiro, who obviously loves peace, is all about peace. And definitely, if we fully trust in our friends, nothing bad can happen. So we should all trust his father Tojiro. And then conversation turns to the peace conference at Leto, and there's a rumor that there's a secret topic of discussion, which they reckon is intended to root out the conspiracy that's like stoking public sentiment and forcing all the factions to go to war. The Order assume that the masterminds are people who've made a lot of money from war profiteering, and that they'll be sniffed out at this conference. And also point out that the security from all the high-tech Leto Gauntlet Knights is incredible. Yeah, well, we'll see. And then, Miao catches sight of his dad at the conference, who has an eerily calm expression on his face that feels off. Valentina greets and guards Tojiro. She says she knows him personally. She's like, hey, this is work. I know you personally, but this is work. You gotta show me your pass, even though I can just scan you and tell that you have a pass. Which I don't know. That's interesting, eh? Like,
yeah. What is their connection?
She's probably an informant or something, because Tojiro is all about that.
Yeah. Well, and maybe I should talk about this later, because like there's more stuff this chapter that like she says that's a little sus. Okay, and then Tojiro takes up position to take a group shot of all the provisional directors and the other guests, and notices that all of the reporters are being guarded by Gauntlet Knights. So Tojiro pulls out a retro camera, which it goes out of its way to say is from the B3W era, and the moment he clicks a photo, there's a large explosion in the meeting room, which kills all the VIPs at once.
Masterful gambit. Because, like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
These are people in obviously very vulnerable positions. Everyone in their countries is, like, hoping that they don't return because they want to push for war and these motherfuckers want to push for peace. So let's gather all the peace-loving people in the same room and then explode it. Like, who could not see this coming?
I would honestly say the people who brought them together in that room, very suspicious.
Agreed.
I know, because, like, Leto is literally... Okay, supposedly there's this secret plan that, yes, this is actually all just so we can pluck out who is the mastermind profiting from the war. Motherfucker, you're the mastermind profiting from the war. You're Leto. You sell high-quality spiritium to all the other 4 factions. You're the one profiting from the war. Yeah. Obviously, you're gonna gather all these people and unalive them. Kill them for good. Like, they are so sus. I do not trust Leto.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
No. I was surprised on a reread how they directly pointed out the shadiness of Leto promoting these people to stop the war actions.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're talking about it as a heroic, risky thing that they did, but they do just straight up say, they manipulated the system to be able to stop things from going towards war.
So of course Tojiro survives because he just happens to have like sidestepped in order to take a photo of Valentina's ass. Very heroic. Champion of peace Tojiro. Which just happens to put him behind Valentina's rejection shield.
It was protected by her ass.
Yeah.
Pro strats.
And then there's some sus stuff about Kirapoyo and Valentina that I'll bring up later because I think we'll just carry on with this so we'll move on to the next chapter.
What?
Disaster Utopia.
You've noticed things I didn't. Like Valentina and Tojiro? Okay, yeah, I got that one. But Valentina and Kirapoyo as well? Shit, I'm interested.
And pretty much anytime Kirapoyo appears on screen, I'm like, add it to the sus folder. Because Kirapoyo never does or says anything innocent ever.
Yeah, no, Kirapoyo is very sus.
Very sus. While we're on the subject, since you brought it up, like, is Tojiro responsible for this attack?
I do not think so.
I think he was in on it and he knew about it, but I don't think he he activated it or whatever. But I do think he knew definitely about it.
That would happen.
Yeah, considering his convenient placement and the highlight that Meow says about like how he has like a weird like shady smile that like only he would recognize because they're blood related.
Yeah, like I reckon Chekhov's gun. Why was the camera discussed in such detail? Probably because it had something to do with it, right? There's a fair amount in this story, Ciconia, that's like it's so obvious that it might be a red herring, but like if it's not a red herring, I feel like the camera is important.
Yeah, the camera confuses me because I would also think him pressing the button indirectly, like, oh, maybe that detonated it or whatever. But also, they do just say in the text that it functions. It's an actual camera. It's not something else in disguise.
I think it was so he could take a picture without it like getting like erased or corrupted or whatever.
Very well thought.
Yeah, because like having an analog thing.
Oh, he does.
It keeps it protected.
He does say he's gonna leave it behind for posterity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me of a scene from 13 Sentinels where one of the characters is saying, "Oh, if you use online, like if you keep track of things through data, it can be messed with. It can contain lies." But if you just write down your own notes in your notebook, you can always keep track of things and know that you can trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I totally buy that. But I also just think that Tojiro wasn't responsible for it because all the instances we see of Tojiro's like behind the scenes shenanigans, he's not counting the finale where it's actually kind of like on the table for discussion, but like all the other scenes we see of him pulling strings, he's not actually the one actively making a change in the world. He's just gathering information. That's what he does. He gathers information and that's what he does. He doesn't, I mean, maybe I'm wrong actually. I don't know, it just doesn't feel like he would.
It's not his style.
It's not his style. I think he was there to make sure he actually knew what happened. He actually was at the source. Because obviously with a big thing like this, like how can you actually know what happened for reals? You know? He probably knew what was gonna happen because it's Tojiro, and he wanted to be there to actually know what was going on with all the misinformation that probably would go around about it.
Yeah, so basically, going back on the point of the digital camera, actually, because I'm skimming the text here. And we know that he's had an eye recording video that he had. And so I just noticed something kind of really sussy, and I think Tojiro made a pro gamer move taking an analog camera into the place to take a picture, because clearly he knew what was going on. I don't know if he, again, like as we were talking, I don't think he like facilitated it, but he mentions to Meow that his eyesight isn't great, so the quality of the eye camera video isn't that great, but he sends it to Meow, and then immediately after they restrict his Cellcom usage, So I think taking an analog video was a way to prevent it from getting wiped from a Cellcom, because we know Cellcoms can actually be tampered with. It's also possible he tampered the video version he's sending to Meow to hide the truth of like what happened in the incident, and so his analog camera may be the only actual physical evidence of what happened. And I think like Leto like restricting Cellcom usage after the explosion, especially saying like you won't be able to speak of, record, or reproduce anything you witnessed today without Leto's express permission. I definitely feel like Leto, if not like explicitly, the Leto girls are maybe partly responsible for this. Yeah,
that's interesting. I was just thinking like an analog camera, you could just turn the flash on, and you probably don't need flash on high tech A3W cameras.
What's the line? Tomitake flash.
Yeah, you could trigger the explosion with a or you could just signal to somebody like, okay, time to do it. Blow them up. I'm in position. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but I kind of like your guys' points as well.
I think it could be either or. It could be both, because I feel like Toshiro is like a weird like semi-neutral party. He's definitely playing both sides. So like as a journalist, he probably wants to have like evidence of what happened via the analog camera, but he also could be in it.
Isn't Tojiro the one who at the beginning of Ciconia has that whole conversation about centrism?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think he's the ultimate centrist.
Extremist centrist.
Tojiro and Sishat are the two characters closest to being players in this whole pieces versus players thing that's been going on since the days of early advertising.
Yeah, because it definitely feels... Well, actually, I'll save that for spoiler chat.
All right, I'll just jump on to the next chapter. So this chapter is called Disaster Utopia, and we get a quote, and you're right, it's from Arthur Hemingway, which is not Ernest Hemingway's real name, saying, "Sadly, the length of a period of peace is proportional to the gruesomeness of the preceding war." And I probably should have thought, I also now want to Google this to see if anyone like Ernest Hemingway ever actually said that.
Or if anyone actually said that.
I tried. I couldn't find it. I found some similar quotes, but nothing that was even close to this exact thing.
Do we think that's a translation thing then, if it's similar but not exact?
I mean, it's...
No, I think that Ryukishi is coming up with these fake versions. I don't know. It might have something to do with the long run. Like, we're gonna realize that that these fake names for real people have something to do with the main twist of Ciconia.
Yeah.
Or that like history's been tampered with. It's just a clue to that.
Oh, I guess it goes back to the digital records being tampered with thing.
Yeah, or B3W history doesn't exist anymore. So
yeah, that makes me wonder. Actually, if I can't recall if in Other When They Cry works, if he's referenced real people before. But that would be interesting to see. But I do really like the idea that these like semi-correct quotes and names is just another testament to like how unreliable like the world history we know in Ciconia is.
Don't trust things you read on the internet, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, pretty much. It definitely feels like that. Very themes of like, like what is true is decided by people of the future kind of energy,
Uh-huh.
Or decided by the victors, even, giving me Danganronpa vibes in that of like, they're the heroes who destroyed the world. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to revoke your Umineko card.
Fuck.
What do you mean? The future decides the truth of the past, and then your mind goes to Danganronpa instead of Umineko?
Let them cook.
Obviously, I thought about Umineko when I said that, but I was thinking of a separate Danganronpa quote, where like Monokuma is talking about like, so like all the heroes are only decided by those who win, because they get to tell people what happened and write the thing. So you could say like the people who like destroyed the world because they came out on top, they're heroes who destroyed the world, is basically like what he's getting at. So like history is decided by the victors type of energy.
Danganronpa is so cool.
Danganronpa is really cool, yeah.
All right. So
the silence.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Gunhild, Meow, and Jaden all watch the video that Tojiro sent them, and they're able to make out Lingji's grandfather for like a moment, and then right at that moment, the view is obscured by the entire backside of Valentina, and then the explosion happens. I took a screenshot of Murray Carmen specifically because, do you guys know, does this gauntlet appear somewhere else? Like,
yeah, that's Dwaito's gauntlet. Valentina also has that.
Are they all like that? Because I just remember, like, it has a gold gauntlet at the end.
It is, no, like, for some reason, Waito is the only place where all the gauntlets are the same. Because Valentina's is the exact same.
I mean, I think there's only 2 Leto gauntlets in the whole VN, so... But yeah, that's interesting, because, like, everywhere else has unique ones.
Yeah, it's the same for Mara Carmen and Valentina.
What does gauntlet, the one that changes and becomes gold right at the end, what does that look like?
I think we'll just find out when we get there.
No, I don't think... I mean, do we do spoilers at Data Archive? I thought
we like discussed we were doing that, since I said I would save things up for spoiler talk.
Oh, I don't know. I thought we were just doing Umineko and Higurashi spoilers, and that was it.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
We've done it one way, we've done it the other.
Nobody knows.
How does the series work, even?
In the comments, do you want this to be open with a completely spoiler-free, so that we don't talk about what happens at the end of Ciconia, so it's accessible to new readers? Or should we just talk about Ciconia all in one go and then save full When We Cry for the only spoiler section?
I mean, like, what spoilers exist for Ciconia? Because there's only one Ciconia. Like, is anybody listening to this alongside? Like, have you been reading Ciconia for like 3 years? Like,
I mean, like, what if someone just like starts listening to the data archives? It's like, oh, like I'll start like going along, so they read a couple chapters. And
that's
they watch
true,
it,
actually.
They read
My
it.
point
true.
exactly.
In 20 years, when we've finished the Data Archive and Ciconia Phase 2 releases, somebody will be like, oh, perfect time to start Ciconia Phase 1. Oh, and I'll watch it alongside the When We Cry. And then they'll be deeply disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like if they did that, though, they'd like... The first... I'm pretty sure the first episode set up the thing that there were no there was no spoiler section for Ciconia. So, I don't know.
I don't remember. I wasn't here back then.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We probably should have had a longer discussion about this, because our conversation about whether there'd be 2 spoiler sections totally ended with not understanding one another at all.
I was under the impression that we decided yes.
I probably should have clarified. I just was like, this seems kind of vague, but it kind of sounds like people are agreeing with me, so I won't press it.
Isn't that the way?
Schrodinger's discussion. You won't know what was decided until you've finished the Data Archive.
Wait, so when we say we'll figure it out, I think we should figure it out now, actually.
No, the bit is funnier if we don't.
We'll save it, but your observation about the golden Leto gauntlets is noted.
Wait, but if I keep going, I'll have other spoilers to talk about. Do I keep those?
How about we don't talk too deeply while we're still summarizing the episode, and then we can get into spoilers after the summary.
Let's do a vote, freaking style.
Okay.
I'll be Gestress.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be the ridicule one.
I'll be Fury.
I'll be the king of... I'll be Sorrow then. I vote for having no spoiler section in Ciconia Data Archive.
I vote yes to spoilers for consistency purposes across.
I vote why is my phone going off? Yeah, I feel like having a spoiler section for the end of Ciconia makes sense, at least for now. I think I'd like to do it this episode and then have a more in-depth discussion about it as we get closer to the end and there's less things to spoil.
Well, whoever the editor is, you'll have a hell of a time. Okay, I'll keep going then. How did this explosion happen? Because, like, there were a bunch of Gauntlet Knights in there with rejection shields that should have been able to protect, but they seemed like they just protected the reporters. Some of the reporters, I should say. Like, I think a bunch or most... or a lot of the reporters were also killed in the explosion. It was just the ones who happened to be standing behind Gauntlet Knights, like Tojiro was, who survived. And nobody seems to have been guarding the VIPs.
wonder if certain reporters were said to stand in a certain place, so that ones that could like fuel the message that Leto wanted to get out of there and report on the incident how they wanted them to would go out, while the others who might give like a different like point of view or like push a different message were killed.
It's interesting.
That's interesting. But I think it makes sense for the VIPs to not be protected at that specific point in time because they were taking a picture.
Yeah.
I think that the way that it read to me, it made it sound like the Gauntlet Knights were there as if to protect the VIPs, but the shields, I imagine the shields as being around their person, so it's like a dome or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I imagine them as a disc.
Yeah, I sometimes do. I vary based on what's convenient for me at the time.
Okay.
So it's like, it sort of almost wound up, and this is me talking about my thoughts as I'm reading the chapter because they changed later, but what was meant to protect the VIPs instead would have wound up protecting the reporters.
Yeah.
Because the explosion came from inside this shield of protection.
Though they can move faster than like fucking jets, so why didn't they rush in and save the VIPs the second they saw something?
Well, they can move faster than jets, but can they react as fast as jets?
Well, I feel like you have to be able to react as fast as a jet to fly like one.
I think so if you're a P3.
Okay, actually, fair point.
The whole note about how the Gauntlet Knights are not meant to be bodyguards. It's like having huge armored helicopters as bodyguards.
It's very overkill.
So the weapons were there for some other purpose. I think they list intimidation, but then later we're going to get into the fact that maybe the Gauntlet Knight technology had something to do with this explosion.
Yeah, so one of Gunhild's friends comes out. Oh my god, congratulations. That's so great. As a police officer. Oh, shit, never mind.
Go back in the closet.
yeah, get back in the closet. I didn't want to know that. And says they think the explosion came from a Gauntlet Knight's dimensional container going off accidentally. And Meow thinks about how the dimensional container is something that can explode violently, killing hundreds, that used to happen a whole lot. And was really dangerous, but now doesn't happen, or happens very rarely, and generally with like only very new recruits, and it should be unheard of among like Leto gauntlets because they're so high tech and so advanced. Which, yeah, I mean, that's kind of suspicious. And they all talk about like, does that mean that someone tampered with a gauntlet to turn it into a bomb?
Maybe Leto gauntlets are the Cybertruck of Ciconia.
Yeah,
it's also. Because these are all children, like, Mara Carmen and Valentina they have to be, like, at most 20. But, like, we talk about people from Tojo's generation, they can't even use a cellcom most of the time. Tojo and Liu Tiankai's generation, they use cell phones, they aren't as much parallel processors. So these are weapons that are highly dangerous, being developed for children to use. Yeah. Specifically, and they quote the reason as it being to support the walls of peace.
And instead they're being used as a potentially involuntary suicide bomber, which is, really strikes a nerve with everybody in the Order of the Public Bath, because they have very strong connections with their gauntlets, and they don't like the idea of somebody tampering with it.
Yeah, Meow talks about the gauntlet as though it's like a Pokemon or something. You raise your gauntlet until it feels like a part of you, until you're a team.
Yeah. So we learn that Retabile, her cowardly older brother. I mean, it's weird that they say cowardly, but I guess makes sense. But her older brother didn't go to the summit because he posted something on social media that was anti-war, but then he got such big pushback that he had to apologize, and he's been radio silent ever since.
He got cancelled.
Yeah, that's true. And she tries to get in touch with him to just because like he's their last link to somebody who can tell them which bad guy they should shoot. And the group discuss how little power they have, despite being enormously powerful on paper. Stanisław reminds everyone that despite being near superheroes, they still have a duty and a reliance on their country, because their country is what keeps their equipment maintained and refueled and gives them missiles to shoot and all of that stuff. So it is something. It's one of the themes I like the most about Ciconia. Is like it really goes into like, yes, they're like extremely overpowered, but also they have almost no power to actually solve the core mystery of Ciconia, which like I quite enjoy. I did have the thought the other day, or like this morning, like, what if Battler had a gauntlet? Because like, oh wait, no, this is for a spoiler section.
But that's an interesting discussion. I want to get back to that.
I want to get to that.
But
yeah. I don't think it would help him at all.
I like the parallels between the fact that they cannot live, like they cannot go rouge, they cannot do whatever they want because they cannot restock on their own. They cannot do nothing. I like the parallels between that and the fact that they are children.
Yeah,
and like children cannot just they can't just up and live if they want to. Like they're dependent on their parents for food, for shelter.
They're supposed to be the main characters of this era, but they have no actual power. It's like trying to be the main character in a book and then rebelling against the author. You can't do it.
Yeah, I actually think that's really interesting since we made the point earlier that it seems that Tojiro and Sesshot are the closest things we have to players in this game. So like Meow and everyone they're the protagonists of this era. They're supposed to be like the main characters, but they're not the players. They don't have power. The adults are actually the players of this game. And I think that's kind of cool to think about thematically. Like our protagonists aren't the main characters, pretty much.
So the next day, so the explosion is a huge news story for exactly one night. And then immediately the next day, the news just returns to what it was before, which is like hate-filled news articles that are just intended to make people angry and push them towards push public sentiment towards back to war. And the truce falls apart the next day.
Yeah.
And after the failure of the truce, there's a news story that I think Kirapoyo just like gives to Meow unprompted. That's like, after the failure of the truce, military stocks have made a huge resurgence, and the day traders are so happy because they're making so much money. And then also it turns out that one of the AOU politicians who was among the group that got exploded, a bunch of
Simon Wixell,
yeah, a bunch of dirt gets dug up on him that shows how he was corrupt and used peace as a tool for business, which is incredibly sus when he's not there to actually like defend himself.
The fact that
like
they're using these people to show, you can't trust the peacemakers, you can't trust them.
Yeah,
they're the villains.
Yes, because the war makers, famously known for not profiting from war.
Yeah, and then there's like a man in the street who's like, oh man, I was all for peace, but then he's a scoundrel. Oh, I guess I like war now. I guess it's even more obvious now that people who keep talking about peace are never up to anything good, which is crazy. Like that, who would think and say that? Like,
it's like if you're talking about clean energy, and then it's like, people who push for clean energy, they have an agenda. They're gonna make profit off of the clean energy, and meanwhile, the people saying this definitely not profiting off of the unclean energy.
Yeah.
All right, and then while Meow is catching up on the news of last night, an earthquake strikes, which Meow's immediate thought is like, oh, I think I bet on AOU Japan in the earthquake lottery. Which, like, is this the first? I think this is the first time this comes up.
It's the
only time this comes
mention
up.
of the earthquake lottery. Yeah,
they might have mentioned it in passing, but this is the time when it gets brought up.
Yeah, I mean,
this is one of my favorite pieces of world building in Ciconia because it shows you so much, like the nonchalant way that they just accept natural disasters because they have such an easy way of dealing with them that they turn it into a lottery, and the fact that it's way more frequent than it is in the current world, because supposedly they get these things in like once or twice a month.
Yeah,
and it just it'll tie back into the next chapter, or this chapter actually.
Yeah,
with like, it's just not normal. You're not supposed to get 1 to 2 earthquakes a month.
Yeah,
and like, you're already fucked. The reason you can keep going like this is because of the EMS. But if the EMS isn't there, then well, Omae wa mo shinderu.
Yeah.
Me at the Earth, omae wa mo shinderu, because you died in the Third World War.
Yeah.
Lunar cycle behind you.
My immediate thought was like, it's kind of like a fucked up version of like earthquake insurance, where like I imagine what happened after like the Third World War and the ADMS was like people who had earthquake insurance could suddenly just collect it all the time because there were so many earthquakes, and then they probably put in the earthquake ADMS, and then nobody wanted earthquake insurance anymore, so they probably turned into a lottery. But like that's just my imagination. I don't know.
Oh my god, that is so nice. Honestly, congratulations. That's an amazing like headcanon. I love that.
Yeah. All right. The next chapter is called "The Dignity of Returning to Dust," which this is so cool. I don't actually know the real person that this is based on. Jack Hein Donner is what it says this is by.
Yeah.
I don't know who the real person is.
I read on this. The real person is Johannes Hein Donner, who was a real grandmaster.
Right.
But, as far as I can tell, never ever went by Jack, and I couldn't find anything on this quote. I could find a list of quotes, and one of them is, the difference between the sexes is remarkable in chess, but not any more so, to my mind, than any other field of cultural activity. Women cannot play chess, but they cannot paint either, or write, or philosophize. In fact, women have never thought or made anything worth considering.
Wow.
Yikes.
Wow.
Ronald A. Knox level of what the fuck?
Holy shit. Okay.
Jesus.
Well.
Who hurt you?
So I did just want to briefly touch on the fact that I've been the one who's always saying these quotes are not are not starters but bookends to the chapters based on the way that the chapter select works. But in the case of Disaster Utopia, does tie in a lot to the length of period of peace being proportional to the gruesomeness of the preceding war, because of the way that all this talk about people wanting war because it's been peaceful for so long and trying to profit off the war. And then this chess is about love. You must sense more love from your opponent's moves than they have put there themselves. There's probably some spoiler talk we could do there, but it's
if it's not real, I think if it is real, then it's very in character for this Johannes Hein Donner, considering what you just told me about his views on women. And if it's not real, then good job, Ryukishi, for like capturing the incel energy so well. So the dignity of returning to dust. So Comrade Mario, best character in When They Cry work of all time, is being applauded in the underground lab for the completion of his research project, which is a big machine made of gigantic pipes that rumbles and shakes the earth at regular intervals. And he claims, he has a big speech, that is a machine to restore the planet's dignity and his own. We get a brief explanation of ATMS about how it was initially just an emergency measure to stop humanity's imminent extinction from nuclear winter, but it rapidly became a just full environmental control technology that just regulates everything about the environment and the weather, and that it ensures that the weather is always comfortable year round. So, in winter it's always 15 degrees, and in summer it's always 25 degrees, Nothing uncomfortable. And Comrade Mario has been granted God's wisdom and realizes that this is a violation of the planet's dignity. He says that what he wants isn't to return to the climate of the past, but to restore the planet's freedom to choose to die. And he proclaims, with one final shake of the machine, Mario proclaims his mission accomplished, and he decides to restore his own dignity manually with a gun. YouTube safe description. But he's prevented by one of the Gauntlet Knights, which blows his hand off. Which, I was saying to Pokey before, it's really interesting, like who these like scientists and Gauntlet, like so it's the blue Gauntlet girls with like no expression. And it's interesting, like who are they supposed to be? Who are the scientists supposed to be? What kind of, like, are they guards? Like, are they like prison guards? Because like who would stop you from killing yourself by blowing your hand off? but then also like not be willing to attack if you use wisdom to do it instead. It's interesting. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
I think it's the risk of destroying the wisdom.
Well, the text says that's because they're afraid of.
Yeah.
They do not want to risk.
It's like a tier list of like S tier, most important. That's the wisdom. A tier, very important. That's the lives of these people. D tier, not important. Their hand.
Yeah.
Their hands. Yeah, they don't need their hands to do whatever it is that they're doing.
We just need their brains.
We talked about like simulation theory for Ciconia, right? Like it's a really like tempting way to think of, but like would you be able to kill yourself in if you wanted to kill yourself in a simulation and there were guards there to stop you from doing it? Would the simulation even allow you to do it in the first place? You know what I mean? Like why would you have a simulation where you need to blow someone's hand off to stop them?
I feel like it depends on if the goals of the people running the simulation are the same as the goals of the people in the simulation, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Is the goal of the simulation runner to like have this place where wisdom can be explored and to run these scenarios without like fault, or do they want to like simulate reality as close as possible? Like what are like I guess it depends on what they want. I feel like it's meant to simulate reality as close as possible. Like it's like real world simulation theory where it's like, you know, maybe they wanted to like run a hypothetical situation of like what would happen in this scenario, so they make like the most realistic possible simulation ever. Where anything can happen to like get the most accurate data.
So that's the simulation angle. The other angle is that like this is like physically like, I think Pokey, this was your point. That this might actually be the people running the simulation, and in that case it's interesting because that kind of puts this more as like this is real life, and they really are just like actual guards there to like keep all these like brainiacs in this like intellectual prison camp, and that's just kind of interesting as well, like the idea of like who are the guards and like who are the people running, because it feels like Via is running the show, but like if she's also a prisoner, then like what's going on there? I don't have any like really good like headcanons or thoughts. I just find these questions very fascinating.
Me neither. The wisdom facility is one of, I think, the most important, maybe not most important, but one of the most brain teasing mysteries to me. Like what does this represent? So when Comrade Mario is unable to restore his own dignity, he instead pulls out a Triachus icosahedron.
We need Sayome.
It's I mean some kind of shape, right? He pulls out some kind of shape that like glows gold.
I think it's supposed to be a star because it plays into the Super Mario Bros. Metaphor.
That was what I was saying when I found that doll picture for the community post. I scrolled up, says Sayome staying up late rambling about Mario, referencing Mario Galaxy, and Via referencing Higurashi.
And
I wasn't sure what to think about.
Wait, what's the relation between Super Mario Galaxy and Higurashi?
Who the heck knows?
It's okay.
I guess this scene.
I think she said like it wasn't like the shape here, the Triachus icosahedron. It wasn't what she thought it was, which would have been a Super Mario reference, but because it was like these kinds of like weird star shaped, 3D star shaped objects. But at any rate, the object he pulls out. The Gauntlet Knights are too scared to shoot it out of his hand. He's enveloped in a golden field and turns to ash. And then, with his ashes still warm, Via reflects that there's absolutely no way that Comrade Mario could have completed the machine on his own. He would need a miracle. She compares it to rolling 1,000,000 dice and expecting all sixes, and just keeping on going until you get it, which is, I guess again, like... Umineko spoilers, but
Higurashi spoilers.
Higurashi spoilers, yeah. And then she wonders if maybe someone or something was helping him. And then back with Meow, the earthquake appears to have hit everywhere on the planet at once, which is something people are not prepared for in the A3W world, where natural disasters have always been fixed with 8MS. And we see a government official discussing the repairs with a bunch of engineers, and they tell him the problem isn't with the 8MS itself, but with the transmitters, and they don't know how to fix the transmitters. And the ATMS is so complicated and interlinked that basically nobody has any idea how they work or how to fix them, except for a bunch of super geniuses somewhere, who knows, like sequestered away in some international facility, who do all the core maintenance and control, and they just output all of these updates to all the local ATMS engineering companies, and they just do minor adjustments.
Do we think this is the underground lab?
I mean, it's if it's not, it's like it's intended for you to think it, right? It's it's like either a red herring or literally it's just the underground lab.
I wanted to say that the way they describe it, of like if you change, I don't know, a light bulb ATMS, you might unintentionally end up changing the color of the sand on the beach.
Yeah.
Like the way they describe it, it kind of sounds like programming, where unintentionally changing one line of code like creates a bug somewhere else. I don't program, but like from what I've heard from people who do, is what it reminds me of.
That is exactly what it is. It's it actually, I started this data archive with like no real stock in the simulation theory, but now I'm thinking like, this feels like, okay, after the Third World War, the world became a simulation, and then suddenly the ATMS spread everywhere without permission by some who knows who. And it's almost like now they're in a simulation and they're noticing the programs of the simulation. And it's not that they didn't exist before now, it's that these people didn't exist before A3W era. It's noticing the cracks in the simulation, but there's still a history, a seemingly altered history, as the quotes might imply, that existed, that they think... It's like you think that the world just kept continuing, but there was a jump into the simulation.
My thoughts about simulation theory that you just reminded me of. I personally feel like it's a scenario in which Third World War happens. The world is fucked, and like they say, like, oh, but then we brought the ATMS in and it fixed everything. I think what happened is we get the spinal cord farm. Everyone goes into the simulation. The Earth is not surviving. And so we go into simulation, and simulation has to perfectly reflect reality, Matrix style, or else like people get suspicious. But like the weird like ATMS future tech is just like, the code of the simulation, like fucking with the ATMS, like fucks like with like the base of the world essentially, and that is like the code holding everything together.
They're bug fixing.
Yeah. I mean, when you say, like, it's like coding...
They're beta players. They're beta testers.
When you say it's like coding, like how changing one thing affects something else far away, like, I think of two things. Like, one, like, I feel like that's bad coding. Like, it's kind of like, anytime where you notice that that's happening, you probably should fix your code, because the frame rate should not be affecting, like, the save state.
The Aurora generators should not be affecting whether or not dogs get rabies.
It was like a color improvement Aurora ATMS, which like you don't need that. Get rid of it.
Which is just
it's Minecraft shaders.
Exactly. That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. If it's not a simulation, why the heck did they make that?
Yeah, and so if it's not a simulation, then my mind goes to like butterfly effect, right? Like, if it's not a simulation, then it kind of makes sense that they put out this, like, Aurora changing color ATMS, and it, like, it's had a butterfly effect. Like, that's kind of like real life. But if it's a simulation, then I feel like they should be relatively separate, but maybe just the complexity just causes these butterfly effects to happen.
You know what it could also be? Which is an interpretation I've never seen anyone throw out, but... because of the discrepancies between the names of the people doing the quotes that we've talked about this episode, the idea kind of just popped up in my mind. So, like, the idea of multiple parallel universes is very frequently used in fiction, to the point where it's overused, honestly. However, what if the reason why changing one ATMS changes everything, a butterfly effect style, is because by changing a simple ATMS, you're actually swapping universes. So everything minor also changes because it's one of the multiple similar parallel universes.
Oh my gosh, how does this somehow also tie into an Umineko?
Like you're changing loop. You're essentially jumping to another loop. Like if there are loops, you're jumping to another loop.
To another fragment. So it's like redacted spoiler.
Yeah.
It's like Redacted's power from Redacted.
Yeah.
This is definitely something I want to keep going
we
full.
Yeah, we should go
When They Cry.
full When They Cry for when we talk about this later.
Okay, make a note of that, Des, because I'm not sure I followed, but
That's fine.
Unfortunately, nobody knows who these super geniuses are and how to get hold of them, so no one can actually say how long it'll be before the ADMS is fixed. It seems as though the planet, which we already know is already dead, has just lost life support. And nobody knows how long before we can turn it back on, or how long the planet can last before it needs to be turned back on. So meanwhile, in the Order of the Public Bath, Murray Carmen appears bearing good news. It seems like there's another global truce in the works. But this time it's not Leto throwing their weight around. It's the ATMS crisis has basically forced everybody in the world to acknowledge that, we need to work on that and not distract ourselves with all this fighting, which is just making everything worse. Because in fact, not just the earthquake ATMS, but every atmospheric ATMS in the world has sustained damage. And the planet's now at serious risk of a snowball Earth scenario. And currently they think, and I don't know how they think this, because they just said in the previous section how nobody knows, but they reckon that fixing the ATMS is now thought to require several months' worth of work. Even worse, and this is terrible, the biological virus, which... is this the first time now that it's been confirmed that it's Herbal L5? I think so. They suspected it before?
I think they suspected it before.
They suspected it, but now it's confirmed. It's definitely Herbal L5, and it was being held at bay by kind of an anti-biohazard ATMS, which was like jury-rigged to like keep it. It wasn't killing the Herbal L5, but it was stopping it from spreading. But now that ATMS is damaged, so the virus is spreading. And it's also mutated, so now it's also affecting the ABN agricultural plants, which it was previously sparing. So all of this to say that, despite how grim all of this sounds, there's some optimism that there'll be a truce, although the Ordo members quickly realise that this is probably going to mean that fighting will intensify before it gets better, because right before a truce, everybody fights hard to try and get as much territory as they can, so that they have a better positioning going into the truce, which might freeze front lines and therefore countries' territory for years to come. So Meow gives the order that all fighting between Gauntlet Knights will be a farce. They're just gonna pretend to fight, but ultimately both sides will be trying to pretend like it was forced to a draw, and that both will be forced to withdraw. And the intention being that if the Gauntlet Knights all tie, then the drones will also tie, because drones can't. Everyone has equal numbers of drones, or they have so many drones that it doesn't matter, and they just throw them at each other, and like the front lines will never move. Yeah, so that's the goal. Make sure the front lines don't move, which they point out isn't it's not exactly like an unbiased decision, because like a bunch of countries have gained territory and a bunch of countries have lost territory, and you wouldn't necessarily say freezing the front lines where they are now is a objective unbiased decision, but Meow just says I can't make that call on a case by case basis. We just have to freeze it here and hope the diplomats can sort it out later. Yeah, that's the end of the dignity of returning to dust.
Oh, and I guess I'll mention the quote, since their book ends and book starts. The quote that is between this one and the next chapter is, good refers only to those who stand against evil. Everything else counts as evil. After all, neutral parties and observers are all passively aiding evil. And that is attributed to one Sean Ruskin, who I think is meant to be a play on John Ruskin.
Right.
And once again, I could not find this quote anywhere online. Curious. It's definitely talking about the centrism thing.
Yeah. Or it's almost like George W. Like if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. Cool. Well, that's the end of my summary.
All right. So that's the end.
We made it.
We covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like these chapters go by pretty quick. I don't know, like they're a quick read. They keep you hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like I'd almost say they're shorter than usual, but I don't think that's true.
No.
As someone who could not finish the required reading in time, and I had to kind of quickly wrap it up while you guys were doing the intro. They're short, but they're so dense. There's a lot of things to note on.
That said, I just looked at the time, and like we're already at 12 minutes past 1 hour. So I guess they were.
Right.
There was a fair amount in these chapters.
Mm-hmm. So should we move on to Ciconia spoilers?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Well, I do have, maybe I could go over the Karapoyo was sus compilation I have for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So these 3 chapters.
Sure. And then I also have that comment.
Yes.
So the first exhibit I have is Karapoyo can read your emails and decide not to send them because he thinks he claims because he reckons you want to finish more of it, and which I get is it's kind of superficially similar to email servers will send you are you sure you want to send this if you don't put a subject heading in, but that's just that's code. That's just a single line of code that says if no subject line, then send error message. This is Karapoyo is reading people's emails and
read Jaden's email and then helpfully prevented it from being sent by accident and then auto-corrected to something else.
Yeah, and then read it out loud to everybody in the Order of the Public Bath, which this embarrasses him in front of
Cat Meow.
Meow. Yeah, Cat Meow.
But honestly, he had it coming. What the fuck,
I mean this
you are dating someone. What the fuck?
Yeah, he's just flirting with the Leto girls.
Do we think Ryukishi thought this was funny though? This comes back to the George discussion on the last Umineko Bookclub. Was Ryukishi laughing?
I think he was maybe chuckling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine him being hee hee, kind of.
Can you imagine it? Can you imagine if somehow Karapoyo is completely innocent? All of this sus is just us reading and nothing, and Ryukishi is oh, it's my favorite character.
Nah, can't.
Jar Jar is the key to all this.
Nah, because every Ryukishi character has something wrong with it. There's something wrong with Karapoyo.
But some have more than others.
Yes, but I feel Karapoyo is too prevalent. You know.
Yeah. To answer your question, Des, I think Ryukishi finds it really funny to put in these horny bait moments and to have them be plot relevant later.
That's
and,
true.
This kind of feels like one of those.
That is true.
Where,
oh my god, yeah.
The horny Jaden email is really it's there to make you forget about the fact that Karapoyo is taking your mail and then reading it out loud to everybody in the Order of the Public Bath.
Yeah, not only does it have access to your private information, it has no qualms about sharing your private information as well.
Yeah.
Which could be a commentary on modern day internet.
Yeah, and the fact that Jaden didn't write this, Karapoyo write this.
Yeah, based off an incomplete email.
Wait, really?
Yeah, from what I can tell from the context, Jaden might have wrote seriously talk about or something, but then what happens is Karapoyo is oh, you didn't mean to send this, which he did. He pressed send by accident.
Oh.
And then Karapoyo himself writes in what he thinks Jaden would say based on his search patterns and his previous emails and stuff.
Well, that's
so Jaden didn't talk about.
Okay, I judged you too harsh, Jaden.
Love packed walls of peace. That's all Karapoyo.
Well, we don't know exactly how much Jaden wrote, because basically he's Jaden's oh, I'll email them. Oh shit, I just sent out an incomplete email draft. Mm-hmm. And then Karapoyo says, don't worry, in times like this, you can count on Karapoyo. I scanned the text of the email just before you sent it. I thought you should probably check it again before sending, so it hasn't gone out yet. So, I feel
yeah.
It reads
I'm surprised he doesn't just send this new version.
Right. I don't know if it it's interesting that he doesn't say it's a new version or anything. It's just I scanned the text.
Oh, I thought he did.
No, he said I scanned the text of the email just before you sent it and thought you should probably check it again before sending, so it hasn't gone out yet. Yeah.
And then what does he say after that?
The next line is, "Are you sure you want to send the following email, Pollo? Seriously, talk about super sexy. I want to support those love-packed walls of peace on your chest, big sis. How do you like that explosion? Can't wait to hear back from you." And then Meow's like, "I'm more worried about what's wrong with your brain."
Wow. Maybe I had a complete reading failure there.
So
I'm going to skim through and find that.
I think so, too. Because, yeah, Jaden's like, "I'm sorry, Meow, forgive me." So, like, clearly he's not like, "Oh, like, Karapoyo who set me up." Like, you know, like, I didn't actually write that. It's like, that's actually how he talks to the Leto sisters.
My reading was that is how he talks to the Leto sisters, but because every Karapoyo is personalized and it fills in your search results based on what it thinks you would say, that when Meow said, "I'm more worried about your brain," it was talking about, oh, your brain caused Karapoyo to write this.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, it is interesting that the bit about the explosion is added in the back. Like, was Jaden in the middle of writing this email? Like, was it not like, so this is what he was gonna say? That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I feel like he was midway through writing the first half, and then the explosion happened, and he just was half-assed, like, because he's like, yeah, he was like writing the email at the same time, and he just like started adding shit on and like stream of consciousness, and that's kind of how you got to this like you've got this like massive like dissonance swing and like, how you like that explosion. Can't wait to hear from you.
What interests me is him like starting with seriously talk about super sexy, which implies they were having a conversation of back and forth emails before this. Like, is she like trying to seduce Jaden? Like what? Like what are you talking about? Like what do you mean seriously talk about super? Like why? What is prompting him to talk like this? Because like Jaden doesn't talk like this to like other women like in public, really. Like we never see him like talking to like Lingji like that, you know, like, or Meow. Yeah, no, not even a Meow. But I guess that situation might be different because they're like in a serious relationship, and also like she shares a body with his bestie who doesn't want his body like sexualized or feminized. Yeah,
I'm not sure Meow would give permission for nudes.
Yeah, definitely not. Without like a long talk about it. Also like highlighting her chest, like, "Jaden, you boobs, man." Yeah, I don't. It's very interesting to me that like this is included. I suppose it's more to just to highlight like that Karapoy has no qualms about sharing like literally anything you are sending, no matter how personal or how much you would want to keep it hidden. But I do think it's interesting that he is specifically talking to the Leto girls like this. I wonder if that's gonna like come up as like super important in like the late phases of Ciconia that we'll never get.
The Leto phases.
Okay, the picture I've sent, right? This is after like it's after the bit where the truce falls apart. Meow is like thinking about like which actually plays into what Zach Magnus's point was, which is Meow has some like kind of out of character thoughts about like whether people would still be pro-war if like they were on the front lines, if they had to fight their own fights. And when he wakes up, there's like a bunch of like news articles and stuff, and Karapoyo is like, "Hey, did you like the music I played you while you were asleep?" And it makes me wonder if he's like playing him like while he's asleep, he's like just like playing him like news articles and like
subliminal messaging,
like brainwashing.
Yeah, like brainwashing while he's asleep. It's like because yeah, like that's I just realized that this is connecting to what Zach had to say in the community post. So
which should I go ahead and do that, or is there?
Sure, yeah.
So we're including comments from the community in the community posts, which we are now able to do because they changed the requirements. And we got a response from the Zach Magnus about when we asked for people's thoughts.
The one and only.
Yes, the one and only Zach Magnus, who said about this chunk, "Meow's ruminations after the explosion seem really out of character. He's suddenly totally misanthropic or thropic. Karapoyo is acting strangely too, being a total troll and playing beach music over war news. Meow finally asks Karapoyo how to delete him and then thanks him when he refuses to answer. Just strange behavior all around. In this scene, I'd guess understanding odd behaviors like this is key to grasping the overall story."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It has to be, yeah.
No, because I do agree. I have the scene pulled up right now, actually. And I think I remember when I first read this, I did feel like it was really out of character for Meow to be acting this way and talking this way.
I actually didn't believe that it was Meow, because there's this whole like rant going on about how peace isn't as important as the beauty of humanity, and that if the whole world was to become the front lines, then all these people would understand why it's important to fight for peace, and how war is bad.
Yeah, disaster utopia.
Is this actually Meow we're listening to right now? Because I was thinking this does feel totally out of character, and I was thinking maybe it's Lingji, because Lingji did just. I mean, Lingji is in mourning after her grandfather was seemingly assassinated, and then the news just stops reporting on the explosion, doesn't even go into depth about like it being an accident or not. And so now, and then all of a sudden people are not taking the truth seriously anymore, because all these people that were trying to create this truce have been eliminated. So I think that could lead her down a dangerous path. And then suddenly we cut to Meow waking up. So I was wondering, did we just change perspectives? Or was Meow dreaming about this and having these thoughts as he fell asleep? But then on the other hand, he does immediately say, if you want a war, why don't you fight one yourselves? So I don't know. It could just be Meow, this entire monologue.
I do think this monologue is Meow, but I have like a couple questions to propose in relation to this, because it does feel very out of character for Meow. But we do know that he seems to be, waking up from a dream. So I have a couple of possibilities here. One, is this possibly thoughts being fed to him via Carapoyo when he sleeps? Because it's a little after this where he's like, did you like what I was playing, the music you played while you were sleepy? So it's possible, like a subliminal messaging, like we were saying before. It's also possible that this could relate back to the murder program thing, in which some of his latent, like, whatever that is kind of like peeking through in his dreams to like kind of like prepare him for the mentality, like a weird like kind of like grooming him to be ready for that, or possibly even like past Meow, because we know that Blue Meow is like kind of mentioned like, oh, this has happened before, I know what's going to happen, it's a prophecy. So it could be similar to that, in which like it is another Meow, whether like Blue Meow or not, that's kind of like ruminating on like, or possibly even like a greater plane Meow, Ryukishi likes to get meta, so it's possibly like Meow being like, oh, I've done this before, so like I've become jaded, but the Meow like on the quote unquote game board isn't as jaded as these thoughts. And my third one is, what if it's not Meow?
Yeah, that could be
because we don't really know what her point of view on all of this is. We get like our main Meow, or Mio, to help to differentiate them, but we know Mio's thoughts on it, because I mean obviously he's like starting all this stuff and is very like anti-war, wants to protect peace. But I wonder if Meow is slightly more jaded, because I've been very sus of Meow throughout Ciconia. I feel there's weird things about her.
If we want to go the route of it not being Meow, it being Meow or Blue Meow those are the only two characters that could be, for the trick to not be unfair on the reader, because it is the limitations of the visual novel. Like, it doesn't have voice, it doesn't have nothing. The only fair way for the trick to work is for it to be one of the other personalities.
Yeah.
So you think that my theory about this possibly being Lingji no good?
I don't think so.
It's very unfair.
I feel like it would be unfair, because it's not like we were in Lingji's point of view before this. Like, yes, she was like having like a moment, but it's not like we switched point of view to Lingji and then continued to it. Like, Carapoyo like cuts the scene, so like, like it feels very much like we have ended this section, we're moving on to the next scene. And then the whole rant like happens, and it moves like into Meow waking up from a bad dream, and also saying, even though I know I remembered it clearly a second ago, that memory felt like sand through my fingers. So it feels like Meow doesn't remember this, but might have like some vague vibes about it, you know, given the whole like, if you want a war, why don't you just fight one yourselves? So it could be something that Meow or Blue Meow fed to him, or a murder program thing, but I do think these were thoughts inside of his head, whether they were his thoughts or not.
That makes sense. It does, because I believe this rant before Meow wakes up is in first person.
It is.
And previously we have quote unquote seen inside of other people's heads. Oh, you ready for some pokey trauma?
Oh.
This when I was in 4th grade, we were learning about writing in first person, second person, and third person. And then because I said that Harry Potter was written in third person because it says Harry Potter did this, Harry Potter did that, but you also like hear what Harry is thinking. And everybody at my table, and the teacher included, tried to gaslight me into thinking Harry Potter is written in first person.
What? What?
And it straight up made me cry, and I had to leave the room.
That's so infuriating.
crazy.
I'm so mad for you.
Yeah, really
because I have a feeling they just hadn't read Harry Potter, and when I said you see into Harry's thoughts, they just misinterpreted what I meant. But it was really silly. Anyways, so when we were in that scene where Jaden and Cat Meow, little sister Meow, met for the first time, we were following Jaden's perspective and not Meow's. But it's not like, as far as I can remember, it wasn't like, oh, I did this, I did that while we were following Jaden.
No, it was, because he was like, yeah, like I sat down in the video game, I noticed that there was something like on my Cellcom. It was definitely first person.
Oh, okay. In that case, I think this totally could be someone else, but I also think that it being Lingji or someone else is maybe not quite as impactful as it being still inside of Meow's body / head.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may not be Meow, but, you know, like, it's definitely someone in Meow's head.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh my god, the cat just meowed when he said meow.
Yeah, my cat is very passionate right now. Though I will notice, like, I'll say, like, as I'm skimming over the scene again, Meow does continue the internal rant in between, like, talking to Carapoyo, like, talking about, like, oh, are humans, like, flawed creatures, blah, 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 talking about, like, animalistic desires, if a true evil does exist behind the wars occurring through the world, perhaps it is a flaw in the creatures known as humans, which makes them periodically desire war, which is something his dad once told him, which, bringing up, like, these thoughts that his dad has had that have that are clearly like seeping into him once again, just like makes me feel like Tojiro is like manipulating Meow's thoughts in some way. Mr. Murder Program. But then he starts like once again like going on this thing talking about that people
people should feel the weight of the walls of peace crushing down on them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's just talking about like that war is just a flaw that the animals called humans are born with, and then Carapoy is like, did you like listening to my background music I played? And then he's like, never play this again, Carapoy, that's enough of background sounds, and now wants to turn on the World News Channel. And I'm just like wondering, did Carapoyo like make Meow go down this train of thought?
It's very possible.
Yeah.
And then watching the news and
with the beach music, which was very funny.
Yeah.
It was funny how it overlapped with the creepy wind sound effects. They're like
yeah.
But at the same time, it was the beach music.
I think something you said actually, Pokey. You said like after this, Meow asks Carapoyo to delete himself, and he says no, fuck you, and then there's an ellipses, and then Meow says thank you, and I remember you saying like that's potentially a situation where like we know Meow has like kind of blanked out before, like his discussion with Tojiro seemed to have done that, where it was like he just kind of skipped a bunch of the discussion.
I have that exact exchange.
It could be. Yeah, whether or not, as Zach Magnus says, like the meaning behind this strange behavior is probably something we should be thinking about, because I don't know whether Meow did something that we, the audience, are just not privy to, or if Meow just wasn't aware, like that blackout scene from before with Tojiro, but then why would you say thank you?
Yeah.
Is this something that I just don't understand and there's nothing sus about it? Who knows?
I think there's a way to interpret this in a way that isn't exactly sus. I do agree, like, the whole, like, ellipses, like, pause beforehand could be interpreted as Meow zoning out. And I don't want to say the scene isn't sus. I'm just, like, gonna be, like, devil's advocate for a second, like, opposite side of things. The exact reading, Meow goes, okay, Karapoyo, do a search for how I can delete you. And he goes, I don't wanna. And then there's ellipses, and then Meow says, thanks, Karapoyo. And Karapoyo says, if you're willing to thank me in cash, I'll accept it, Poyo. And Meow says, there's no way I'll do it. I'll let you stay as you are until my cell comm breaks. And I feel like, while that is incredibly sus, it could also be interpreted as, like, Meow thanking Karapoyo for trying to cheer him up during this, like, bad time of, like, cracking jokes like, no, I don't want to leave myself, and playing, like, the silly, like, island music over the war thing, like, trying to, like, keep Meow's spirits up, especially because Karapoyo is in his cell comm, is in his head, which means he probably knows of all these, like, terrible, like, downer thoughts that Meow is having. So I feel like
agreed.
That could be why the thank you is said, of, like, thanks for, like, keeping my spirits up.
Wow. So much love in that interpretation.
Thank you for being born.
Shut up.
I think, like, yeah, in summary, like, the argument is either that the thanks is a non sequitur, which indicates that there was a discontinuity in the conversation, or, like you said, that it's just a beat in the conversation.
Yeah,
where,
of, like,
Meow's, like, changed his mind about something.
Yeah, like, I can see, like, if it gets voice acted, like, him, like, letting out, like, a little, like, half sigh, half laugh, like, like, thanks, Karapoyo, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
The Karapoyo does fucking die after this.
Wait, what?
So what?
at the very so, like, at the after this conversation, the earthquake happens, and Meow's like,
oh yeah,
oh no, there was an earthquake. Did I bet on the lottery? Like, Karapoyo, talk to me about the breaking news about the earthquake. And Karapoyo's like, your connection is unstable, Poyo, please wait a moment. And then Meow's like, that can't be good. Is everything okay? And then the scene ends with Karapoyo just laying down. So it's like,
true.
Oh shit! Oh my fucking god, he's fucking dead. So that's also interesting. Of course, that ties into, like, wisdom moment. But I don't know. I feel like it's interesting that, like, Meow's like, oh, I'll keep you here until my cell comm breaks. Then Karapoyo just dies instantly.
Yeah.
Cannot take compliment. Must self-destruct.
Yeah.
But that also makes me think that Karapoyo is connected to what's going down in the secret lab.
Yeah. I got one other thing on, like, because I agree with Zach Magnus that, like, the conversation that Meow has in his own head about, like, people being on the front lines of their own wars and all that, I do agree it's out of character. Although I have to say, like, I feel like it's incredibly relatable to be, like, whenever you, like, run into, like, public opinion and you feel like public opinion is wrong, that's really frustrating and really depressing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't know.
Yeah, I could easily see myself, like, having this kind of mental conversation. It's just like as a cope mechanism, like just like
getting irritated about
like,
it.
I'm busting my ass trying to stop the world from like reaching out and fucking over your life, and you're doing everything you can to fuck over your own life. It's like, help me help you. But I think the bit that definitely is uncharacteristic for Meow is, like, he has this bit where he's like, I'm going to use this gauntlet on my arm to, like, to show you the true value of peace. So, like, it feels more like something that Blue Meow would, like, tell him to do, or tell her to do, depending on
the thing about the I'll use my gauntlet. That was another thing that made me think it was Ling Ji, because Ling Ji was just talking about, oh, what's the point of this gauntlet? It's useless.
I mean,
in the exact previous scene.
That could be a Meow contrast, though, of being like, no, it isn't useless. I can make a difference with this gauntlet. Because, like, Meow this whole time has been, like, fighting to make a difference, to stop the war, keep the peace, and has been very passionate about it outwardly and vocally. Though I can also interpret this scene as like this internal conflict Meow is having where he's trying so hard and things just keep getting worse and there's just like this frustration built up. And like he's alone in this scene. He's not like having to like keep up the positive spirit or like try to keep everyone on track or whatever. Like this is just like raw, like I am alone, I'm stewing in my thoughts, I'm asleep, but I'm also like watching the news and stuff. And like I've just had this negativity like thrusting down on me like a terrible thing just happened. Like my friend's grandpa just fucking died in an explosion. So I can see him getting like when alone and like quiet and with his thoughts and not having like everyone around him to like help him keep up his usual mindset, he can devolve into this like bitter like mindset of like, you don't know how hard it is, like we're trying our hardest, but like you just get to like watch war like a fucking show, like you know, like if the front lines were your front yard, you'd be singing a different tune basically. And I can see him being bitter about that. And just like,
if there was just one little riot, that would help everything.
Yeah, like get people to come to their senses.
This line about like maybe peace isn't so important as the beauty of humanity, and I'm like, who's talking right now? Lysander from Pokemon X and Y.
Do we want to go like full when we cry spoilers?
Yes.
All right.
Let's do full spoilers.
Full Ciconia spoilers first, right?
If we have thoughts for full Ciconia spoilers, now would be the time.
I don't.
I have a little bit, just based on what we were talking about earlier, so we can do that real quick.
Oh, true, actually.
We might as well do the divide now. So from this point forward,
full Ciconia spoilers.
Yeah, if you haven't read Phase 1.
If you haven't finished Phase 1 somehow by this time, skedaddle.
Skedaddle. And thank you.
Thank you for listening.
And thank you, yes.
Okay, so while back we were talking about like possibility of Jaden CPP, and I don't think it's the case, but I do have to bring up Blue Jaden at the very end, which is like a possible point of proof of like Jaden having something about himself that he doesn't know about. But again, with Ciconia, that could tie into fucking simulation theory, that could tie into like the repetition thing of like maybe this is like Jaden from a higher plane. Like, is this like, I still don't know how to interpret that. Is that like fucking heaven? Are they angels? Like, what is this supposed to represent? It's just like very confusing, but I thought I would bring that up in terms of like, oh, Jaden might have like a separate side of himself.
Yeah, and Des, I can't remember, I think it was Des, you and I had this conversation, but not on an episode, about the theory of how these different ways of thinking the CPPs might represent you in previous loops. So like maybe next phase Jaden will have a CPP.
Oh, maybe. Like, do we but like that wouldn't mean, I guess like people, it depends on maybe like how involved you are in the loop possibly.
Yeah, or like your awakening to awareness, because there's the whole Koshka brain thing where Koshka is Pandora's box.
So maybe unlocking blue form is unlocking awareness.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do also just like Jaden as being the audience surrogate to introduce us to these concepts. So I don't know about him lying. Maybe he doesn't know that he has a CPP, but then that feels a little bit,
I feel like that's a hard thing not to know.
Out of universe.
Yeah.
Like maybe if this was a different story, but they had to have all these things about CPPs, that it feels like Jaden being one in secret wouldn't fit in.
I feel like that would just also be something you would know. Like I feel like it makes sense for them to have like tests, like for being a Gauntlet Knight, like testing to see if you have a CPP. I feel like there's ways to detect that, and I feel like every like person who has a CPP is aware of it. And again, like Rikishi makes the distinction between CPP and DID. Like if Jaden had like DID and like dissociated and then didn't realize that he was doing that and like had like memory gaps, that would be a different thing. But I haven't seen like proof of Jaden having any like gaps in his memory or not like recalling doing something or like zoning out or having like drastically different behavior.
Yeah, but you know, playing devil's advocate, I think it might be possible to have a CPP and not realize it, just because of the way their brains work, where literally the different personalities within Meow can do different things at different times.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not aware of it, it's that like if little sister Meow is out typing something to Jaden, big brother Meow isn't like doing nothing. Big brother Meow is probably like watching YouTube or something.
Yeah.
And choosing to not think about it because like, why would I think about my sister's personal emails while I'm doing something else?
I guess what that would require is the other personality to be actively like not making contact with the other one, you know? Like if Jaden had a CPP, for some reason it has not made itself aware to Jaden. It is just doing stuff in the background that we cannot know about, and I feel like that is I feel like that's very unfair. I haven't seen like any evidence of that, so I wouldn't be super satisfied. I'd be like maybe okay with him getting one later on, but as of right now I don't think Jaden has a CPP, and I might be little upset if he does.
It also fall in line with regressive tropes about the evil personality, you know, like the genocide jack shit.
Yeah, I really like how Ciconia is like subverting like all your harmful D&D tropes. Like even like Blue Meow isn't really evil. He's like, Meow, stop, you cannot kill your friends. I don't want you to fucking murder your friends, so kill yourself. But like it like Blue Meow clearly has a good motivation. He's going about it in like a very like mean way to Meow, but also he knows Meow's gonna kill everyone that he cares about, so it's kind of like it's a funny like twist on like the evil personality that isn't actually evil and is just trying to do a good thing. I like that subversion of the trope.
Yeah, maybe
we're proven wrong in phase 2 and like Blue Meow is evil and pulling the strings, but I feel like the real villain in this family structure is Toshiro. I think he's fucking with Meow's head.
Yeah.
And we do have evidence that he can directly affect Meow's head. I was gonna say this when talking about like the dream thing, but we know that like he can take direct control of Meow. Like he made Meow kill Lingji, like fucking video game controller, which is interesting. Going, well, I guess that's Fall When They Cry spoilers. But I don't know. I'm sus. I don't feel like Meow can even trust his own thoughts. I feel like Meow is probably like the most unreliable person. I feel like it's a subversion of Umineko, in which our protagonist is completely unreliable. I don't trust Meow's point of view.
I mean,
I don't think like completely 100%, but I feel like he's I don't trust the things that he thinks and sees completely.
I mean, that would open up a whole Umineko discussion. So I think.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of Lingji Gold's discussion.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the gold gauntlet for Lingji. How her gauntlet changed.
Yeah, honestly, it was just more just like an open question. Like, do we think Leto? I mean, in general, Leto is quite sus in this chapter. Like the conversation between Valentina and Tojiro after the explosion doesn't feel very like adequately suspicious from Valentina. She's like almost like talking around the fact that like, I know you did this, or I know you knew about this. How coincidental that you didn't get exploded. You know, you just happened to be standing behind me. The gold gauntlets. Mari Carmen has a like she's in the Order of the Public Bath when they're like deciding whether or not to do the turning fighting into a farce, and Stanislav says, I'd like to hear what First Lieutenant Mari Carmen's opinion on this too. And they ask her, and she just goes, oh, the Order of the Public Bath belongs to you young'uns. Naturally, your big sister will respect your decision. Stanislav goes, if that's our Observer Knight's view, I have no objections either. I'm sure my Ketty and those who support us will feel the same. Which, like, she kind of dodges the question. She doesn't actually, like, it's like she doesn't get involved in any decision making or offer any, like, useful context. Like, and every time she tries to offer context, like, people have already thought of it. So, like, it's almost like she's not giving them any information unless they think of it, and then she pretends like she was going to give it to them for the whole conversation. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going over all the sus Leto stuff now. But then on top of that, gold gauntlet, and it made me think of Lingji, and I was like, she had a gold gauntlet.
Yeah.
Is this like a Leto thing? Leto conspiracy
and you
theory?
can also connect that back to the secret lab as well, because the blue girls there also have gold gauntlets.
Yeah, gold gauntlets.
I definitely feel like I wonder if Lingji also had an awakening like Jaden had. in that moment, like before she died, because like that was like a really like weird last minute change. I also wonder if like after her grandfather died, maybe like that like opened up an avenue to something we didn't see, where like she ended up like siding with Leto in the war side, and we don't know, like maybe Lingxi's one of the traitors, and that could be like a hint towards it. But I don't know. Honestly, on that topic, I feel like the underground lab has to be under Leto.
Yeah. I mean, if the gold is the connection there.
Yeah, I never thought about that before, and now it just like clicked in my brain. And I was like, Leto, what are you doing with this underground lab?
It would make a lot of sense if you were trying to like stir up World War IV, that you stir it up everywhere except where your house is.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah, using shit where you wait.
I'm not sure it adds up to anything, but I was showing this to Horsefry earlier. It's in the data archive. Do you think that of these 3 blue girls, the one on the left looks suspiciously like Noor?
No.
No.
I mean, like, I can see where you would get that from.
I mean, does the one on the right look suspiciously like Asuka? I don't remember her name. No, that's just a similar hairstyle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a similar hairstyle.
I just wanted it to be known.
Let it be known that we are here in what's it? Wiggly distinct.
Though, like, the way, like, her bun is also slightly reminds me of Gannett's curly hair as well. I feel like it's just, like, a similar hairstyle. Like, they both got, like, that really, like, curly...
Okay.
I feel like it's the same hairstyle, it's just from a different angle. Like, you can't see the hair going down from the back of her head.
I feel
she's
like...
facing you more.
Because you would see it behind the neck.
Well, she's got a big collar on.
We are reaching so far. Holy
But how,
shit.
like,
It's
curly
curious.
it
Guys,
is.
this is...
All right.
Anyway.
I'm sorry for opening up this can of worms.
I don't think they're the same.
No, this is sorry. This is just not true. This is just damn. I know we are grasping at straws and desperate for content, but jeez.
Okay, but I can understand where the
I believe
misconception, like, where you would think
Yeah.
that.
When I first saw her, I was like, wait a minute. And then I opened it up and it's the little Clark Kent swirl.
You know what? Now that you mentioned the Clark Kent, I think I agree with you, actually.
Yeah.
It's the Clark Kent. It's the little, like, squiggly, like, in front of the hair. It's in the same place.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
All right.
Okay, anyway, should we get into full
Yes,
When They Cry
please.
spoilers?
Yes.
So if you haven't read all When They Cry works, honestly, a bold move starting with Ciconia. We hope you've enjoyed the episode till now. The adults are gonna have a little chat now.
Yippee!
Yeah.
I actually do have a friend who started with Ciconia.
So Mario rolled all those dice, supposedly, metaphorically, to get the machine up and running. And it is the machine that ends up ending the world. Much like Takano, I mean, in Higurashi, she was the certainty that the world of Rika would end, and then the whoops would keep happening. Because she dies. And in Ciconia, because of this machine, everyone dies. So this is where the certainty is at. Wherever Lambda is, be it with Dreisig, be it with Gestress, whatever she's doing, whatever pieces she placed on the board, this is where we can most definitely say her influence is in the machine.
Yeah, so that's our certainty lab. So it would be the equivalent of the bomb in Umineko and the gas.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that you connect
Yes.
it to Lambda, because the way that they were talking about miracles and rolling dice immediately leads me to think about Rika and Burnkus.
Well, that leads to my theory that they're working
That
together.
is, oh my god. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
because I believe we've talked about the idea that they're working together and like sharing pieces and whatnot.
Wait, that's the contrary of Umineko, because in Umineko you have a miracle will certainly not occur, and then in Ciconia you have a miracle will certainly occur.
Yeah.
Wow.
In Higurashi, it's a conflict between the two, like a miracle to stop a certainty.
Yeah, because Higurashi is Lambda versus Burn, and Burn wins. And then Umineko is, again, another game against Lambda and Burn, where Burn technically wins because she was sponsoring Beato. And now I think they're working together.
Unless unless there's no whoops or something.
There's gotta be.
And this really is just a one-time thing that only happens on this phase, and on other phases Mario will not complete the machine. We have to wait and see.
I feel like, because that's like the beginning of the end. Like, I feel like Mario completing the machine is like Takano, like, starting to like get everyone prepared to like L5, like kill them all. Like I feel like that the starting of the machine is the murder of Rika.
This is the moment when the Doomsday Clock, as I've dubbed it, strikes 12.
Yeah. Like, that is the midnight on October 6th. That is the death of Rika Furude. That is the, like, they're past the point of no return. We can't fix this one, boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. That does remind me, Des, you were talking about the alternate universes things with the...
Yes, I was gonna get into that. Horsefly, you didn't exactly get what I was trying to say, did you?
No, I'd probably appreciate another explanation.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make it more simple and quick. Basically, it's just another way of trying to look at the fact that if you change one small bit of 8ms, you may change another seemingly unrelated bit of 8ms. What if they truly aren't related? And they just aren't. What is happening is that, much like in Higurashi and mostly in Higurashi, you see Rika going through all of these different fragments that are just slightly different. What people are actually doing when they mess with the 8ms is changing to a different fragment, where things are just slightly different, not just the thing you just altered. Something else completely unrelated might also just be different on that fragment.
Yeah, so you're jumping to a world where X is true, but like that world where X is true, something else might also change because you're just going to like the nearest thing. So like while you're not planning for Y to also be true, it is, because that's just that's just the world where X is true. That just happens to be the case, essentially.
Yes, so it's not that they developed an 8ms for Aurora, the color of Aurora Borealis. It's just that you change to a different fragment where that's just different.
Yeah.
So they didn't engineer that to be that way. It just is. It just exists there.
It does remind me of my interpretation of the way that Berncastel, or maybe more specifically Frederica Berncastel's powers work, where I guess this is leading into a grander theory that's related to where Berncastel comes from, but the idea that at the end of in Higurashi chapter 7, there you have the voice of the person who explains rules X, Y, and Z, and then in they're also the ones in Matsuri Bayashi who leads you through connecting all these different fragments together. And so it's like the way that Berncastel's powers work and the power of miracles is to like overlap fragments, so that you can have things that appeared in one world line appearing at the same thing as another 1 in 1 million chance. So as long as the probability is not 0 and she can find the fragments, Berncastel can just sort of sew these fragments together into one thing, which is how the Requiem of the Golden Witch even happens, is that it's just combining all these different versions of characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I feel like when that happens, like that they point it out. Like Requiem is not a game board, or I mean, it is a game board. I guess it's not a fragment.
It's
because
a
like,
wrap up.
Shannon and Canon and Leon, like Shannon/Canon and also Leon can coexist. Like they can talk to each other, and other people observe them talking to each other. Like it's intended to be a kind of uncanny valley, not real universe.
Like it's not plausible.
Whereas, like, I feel like if ATMS is like the 8 million parallel universes system, or like, you know, more than 8 million, but like 8 million.
I like that.
I feel like
it's the 1000 of Umineko. It's the number that metaphorically represents infinity.
It is funny because it is the 8 million metaphor is exactly the same as the witch who, like, after 1,000 years, such and such.
Yeah. I feel like the changes from ATMS, there's like a lot of them, and are they all step changes, or like it kind of the vibe I get from ATMS breaking down is it's a gradual change, like things slowly start breaking down, people slowly start noticing smells again in the major cities, people like the color of the sea turns like bright orange, I think, is it? Like towards the end. But I don't think it was implied that like you look out at the sea and it's beautiful blue sea, and then you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and now it's orange.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's a gradual change. Does that vibe with like how we think of like parallel universes?
I guess
it also seems like a lot of work to like build a system that teleports you from one universe to the next. That like, why don't you just find the universe where World War III didn't happen?
Well, it might be too difficult to search, but I feel I don't want to say that it's another universe hopping situation, because we kind of already did that with Higurashi, and I feel like based on like how like Umineko was to Higurashi, we're, you know, like obviously like when they cry we have our loop pattern, so you know, like in Higurashi it was a time loop caused by Rika basically quitting the universe and jumping into the next universe with Hanyu's help. So like everything still happened. It was just parallel universes that were slightly different, and was just hoping to find the right one. Where in Umineko, it played with our expectations on this and started a time loop like scenario. So everyone at first is like, oh, it's a time loop like Higurashi, but it wasn't. It was like multiple stories being written to make you think it was a time loop, but really there was only one event that happened. So I feel like in Ciconia, Ryukishi is going to be doing something different that plays on our expectations of both of these things, which is why I lean heavily into the virtual reality simulation like theory, because I feel like that explains the loops without it being something that he's already done before, but is like vaguely similar.
Fair point.
It's hard to know without phase 2 being here. Because if you're going into Higurashi and Umineko blind, you don't know that it's a time loop.
You don't.
I mean, like, by the end, all the characters have died, but that's the same way in Ciconia.
Yeah.
But you're like, where do we go from here? And you just try again.
And I can't lie about Ryukishi being known to break patterns by the third time, because, like, episode 3 of Umineko is vastly different from the ones before. Like, the epitaph is solved, like Feoto isn't doing the murders, like it's like a massive subversion of expectations. It isn't even written by Sayo, it's like written by completely different authors, so it's like the big subversion of like what we already expect from Umineko. It establishes like, oh yeah, like the thing like one mother surviving, that wasn't a pattern, the first 2 times was just coincidence, you know? And like in Higurashi even as well, like, you know, like it also just subverts like the classic like thing we expect of like, oh, like someone's going crazy, and like it's one of Keiichi's friend groups where, you know, like now it's like, oh, Sadako's just being abused and we have to like figure out how to deal with that. It's like a complete like subversion of like, where no one's out to get me right now, I have to protect someone else. It's like a flip on the head. So I'm wondering, will Ciconia flip it on the head? It's not even a loop, but I feel like the loop is all we have to go off of.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, this may have been talked about before, but just on the concept of AMS, obviously, like, based in the, like, the 8 million gods or kami thing in Shinto, or, like, you know, like, there are too many gods to count, and, like, gods exist in literally everything. I do think, given all the religious themes in Ciconia, it is very interesting to think about this as a world where people control gods, and gods don't control them.
Yeah.
That's just a thought. I don't have anything like coherent about that, but that just popped in my head.
You know what? That actually tracks. That tracks with Meow's mentality, because he's at peace and he's trying to influence the players.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we, like feeble humans in the world of Ciconia, are able to control all 8 million kami that exist and make them bend to our will to do whatever we want. And it's kind of like a parallel to like this insignificant piece may be able to affect the higher plane of whatever game is being played, and basically like have a contest with God. Which I feel like, you know, ties into the idea that we're having a fight with Featherine here, because Featherine is like the closest we have to a godlike character. Featherine, Ewa, whatever name she wants to go by. Also, in terms of that, if we were talking about Tojiro and Sheshat being players in this game, and I definitely get the vibes of Meow being his piece, and that's also like another reason why I can't fully trust like what Meow is doing, because I feel like Tojiro is playing him. Like, we've already seen Tojiro like display direct control over Meow in the ending of Ciconia. So like when Meow is like having those dreams, is that like Tojiro like controlling the piece? Because we know like pieces from Umineko can't act like explicitly out of character. They can only do what they would do. But is Tojiro like stretching that to the extreme? Things to think about.
What if Tojiro is a looper?
That's what I think. I think he's up to shit.
I would believe it.
The murder program could be a way to get around that.
Looper candidates as far as like number 1 is Koshika, and then I don't think Lilia can loop yet. But then Tojiro and Seshat are the only other characters I can think of that the time loop would be centered around.
I'm wondering if Tojiro and Seshat are like to Lambda Delta and Burn like Erica and Mio like adjacent, in which like those are like the pieces that they're having play the games for them, because we know they don't typically like play themselves. Like Lambda be like, okay, Beato, this is your game, I'm sponsoring you, and Burn is like, okay, Battler, Angie, Erica, you're playing the game for me, but they don't like directly like play themselves. So I'm wondering if they're working together and sponsoring those two pieces players in the game. Seshat being more like Lambda coded to me, where Tojiro is definitely more Burn coded to me. More food for thought. I think a lot about Ciconia game board theory, and it makes my brain hurt. But I do think Tojiro's a looper, because it feels like he knows what's going on. And yes, that can be because of his connection to Gestress and we're getting info from the Three Kings and all his like the secret resource gathering things. But like, I feel like he's too chill about it. Like, I feel like Tojiro, when I read these like last few chapters you're going through, and like Tojiro like standing like perfectly behind the Gauntlet Knight and taking like the picture at the perfect time and knowing like the strat to like send the video camera to Meow and stuff, Tojiro reads to me like he's speedrunning. Like, he's like learned the pro strats to get through Ciconia, and he's like going for the perfect run.
That's awesome.
that is like exactly the vibe that reads to me. He's like, I know if I stand here, I'll get the glitch where I don't die and I get protected by the rejection shield, and I like clip through the wall, and I'm able to get the full recording of the explosion to Meow. Like, you know, like it's shit like that. They feel like game breakers. And that also doubles to like my feelings towards the secret lab, where like they kind of feel like beta testers, where they're like testing the world for glitches and like trying to like understand it via wisdom. I don't know. They feel like game breakers. They're like, how do I any percent like 100% like glitch okay speedrunners, like trying to figure out how to win Ciconia.
I like that.
Thank you. It's been rotting my brain. I've been needing to say it for so long.
That's interesting.
I think it comes back to like we have lots of information for making theories, but like it's so hard to narrow one down. We need phase 2 Ryukishi, please.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Of course,
because everything seems so plausible right now.
When we get phase 2, if we get phase 2, when we get phase 2, we're gonna say, oh, we can't figure this out, we're gonna need phase 3.
Yeah. But I feel like things are solvable by the time you start getting to the second part of a When They Cry work. Like, you can solve Umineko with the first 2 episodes. It's hard, but you can.
I bet we have all the answers in our grasp. We just don't understand the questions yet.
Yeah, because, I mean, you can, like, figure out who done it in episode 1 of Umineko, like, especially, like, if you're paying attention to canon. Like, you may not be able to, like, get the idea that they're the same person, but, like, you can definitely, like, get the vibe that, like, canon did something. So I feel like I'm in that, like, area where I'm like, I know Canon committed murders and is unreliable and is doing shady stuff, but I do not know why. I do not know what secrets he has. I have like an answer and 8 million questions, but I don't know what questions are the right ones and what I should be searching for answers for.
Makes sense. I think at this point we've had too much time to ruminate on it, because whenever phase 2 comes out, I get a feeling that as a community we have taken all the steps towards the truth. All that's left is to open the door, and as soon as phase 2 drops and we read it, we're gonna get it. So I believe Ryukishi is also in a weird and tight spot releasing phase 2, because it's like the epitaph. It's a community job, and we've done it all. We just need to connect the dots. We have all of them ready.
I have complete faith in Ryukishi to like pump out like phase 2 and me be completely blindsided by all of it. That feels like something that would happen. I feel like he's like impossible to predict. It's like every episode, it's like that Umineko meme where it's like first episode, it's like, oh, I know where this is going, and then like the rest of it, it's like, no, the fuck, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like, you can be in episode 7 of Umineko and be like, I don't know how they're going to continue this. I don't know what's next. Like, what the fuck could possibly happen after this? I feel like Rikishi's very good at that. So
True.
I don't feel like phase 2 is going to drop and I'm going to instantly get it. But who knows? Maybe I might. It's been a while. I've been thinking too much about it.
Well, you guys can keep going if you want to, but I gotta
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
I feel like I've ran out of steam as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be better just to close the episode.
So we hope you've enjoyed the episode, and we hope the next one comes a little bit sooner than this one.
Yeah.
With that said, we are almost done with Ciconia, so you better savor this one. And yep, we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Akite.